because, and this is one of the great Torah insights, and by the way, this is not my own alone. I came up with this and then read commentaries of both Christian and Jews writing on this, and they both made the same exact point that I felt, and that was that the Torah deeply, deeply believes that property is dignity. This is going to make you think on two levels. One, how bad the sin of any form of theft is, and I'll give you 5 different examples. But also to show you that it is important. Property is important. The notion that you should take a vow of poverty is un-Jewish. It's anti-Jewish. Vows of poverty are not Jewish. This notion that people having money, people having property is somehow sinful just isn't Jewish. You can have it because it's a free country. You can have that opinion, but it's not a Jewish view. And I will read to you substantiating evidence of this. The Torah is adamant about property and adamant about protecting property. And so it's having these things when you have them. Well, I'll read to you, for example, I'll read to you from a modern Jewish, Israeli, non-Orthodox writer, David Hazoni, in his book on the Ten Commandments that just came out. What emerges from the biblical stories is that property is in some way deeply connected with the essence of who we are, with our very presence in the world as human beings. In the time of Noah, God regrets ever having made man, for his disregard for others' property effectively undoes the elevation of humanity that stands at the heart of creation. Abraham's purchase of the cave is not an untoward distraction from his mourning, but an integral part of it. By the way, the Torah, when I taught Genesis, I showed how often it noted Abraham bought the cave where he buried his wife. It must say 4 different times, and Abraham bought it. In his sorrow, Abraham wants desperately to show the world that Sarah has been a real part of himself, his true love, and he cannot bury her in a place that is not also an unequivocal extension of his being, titled land for which he has paid a very high price. Elijah shows Ahab that killing Naboth for the purpose of dispossessing him constitutes a perverse and extreme form of dehumanization, more than ordinary murder out of anger or jealousy. So killing him for his property was worse than just killing him. There is something about our property, our dominion over the world of things, that makes us human, and something about stealing that undermines the core of our humanity. That's why it's no joke when kids steal. The society and the parents have to come down on them. It is the ultimate statement of narcissism to steal. I don't acknowledge you. Oh, I only acknowledge me. I take, you are of no significance. That's how powerful stealing is. Stealing anything. It's humiliating to have $1 stolen. It's not the amount that causes us our humiliation. The very entrance of the burglar into your home, if they stole a blanket, you feel vulnerable, and as I said, a form of rape. That's how powerful it is. It is not bad to be attached to material things. It's bad to elevate material things over moral things or over spiritual things. Yeah, fine. You can overdo anything in life. It's okay to be attached. That's the Jewish message, believe it or not. We underestimate the evil of burglary. You know, I mean, if you get burgled now, there are many police departments that won't even bother taking your report. That's a very bad thing, because the burglar today is not going to stop with burglary. That's where people start. If you get away with raping people in that way, you will go on to real rape, and you will go on to real murder, and you will go on to worse crimes. It's very, very serious. But we don't take it seriously enough, because after all, it's just a property crime. Yes, a property crime in the Torah's view is a very big deal. You ever hear the term confiscated? The government confiscated, I don't mean in the United States, but where the state confiscated such and such property. You read, all right, how bad could it be? But the confiscation of property is what led to the Holocaust of the Ukrainians. And I use that term very advisedly. Ukrainians were killed in 5 to 7 million by Stalin. And you know why? He took their property. Land-owning peasants got their land taken away because they were supposed to be put into kolkhozes, into communal farms. Now, it's not only property that we steal, and not only money, obviously. I'll give you an example of a common form of theft that people don't want to confront. People who go to a store, I'll give a male and a female example. Man goes into a store, he wants to buy a camera, and spends 20 minutes of the clerk's time, and then at the end thanks him because he knew in advance, all he did was figure out what camera he wants. Then he goes on the internet and buys it for $20 cheaper. Do you know that in Judaism, in the Talmud, and I learned this from my dear friend Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, next door. We went to the same high school, and he ruined my life, because in high school he told me this thing from the Talmud. A Jew who walks into a store is not permitted to ask the storekeeper the price of an item if he knows he will not buy it. You can ask if you think you might buy it. You don't have to buy at a store you ask about. But if you know in advance you won't, you are stealing the income of those you talk to. You're stealing their time, you're stealing their dignity. And you know, when I wrote this up as an article, do you know how many retail places thanked me and told me they put the article up in their store? Retail places would tell me stories about being abused by consumers that were just terrible. That one is mostly male because men and their toys. The mostly female one is women who will buy a dress, quote unquote buy a dress, use it for a Saturday night or Friday night affair, and then bring it back Monday. I'm sorry, I just didn't like it. That is theft as if you had held up a bank. I just want to say that to you. That is stealing. But we rationalize. There are so many Americans now who take items, use them, and then return them after they've used them, that stores are now keeping records of who does this regularly, so that they realize that there are people who do it regularly. There are billions of dollars. Wall Street Journal article recently, billions of dollars are lost in people doing this with stores. You can steal time. Keeping people waiting chronically is stealing their time. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. It's a statement of my time is more valuable than your time. Whether it's done, I don't want to cause troubles between couples here, but I'm sure that the other spouse has his or her own issues that you have to deal with, but chronically late is not right. You have stolen people's time. The people waiting for you, the appointment, what have you. And by the way, a word to doctors. Maybe I don't have to give the word to doctors. You know exactly what I'm going to say. Look, I have perfect understanding. My brother is a physician. I totally understand that doctors cannot be held to the exact minute of an appointment. Of course not. Emergencies come up, they're called to a hospital. An emergency person has to be brought in ahead of you. But this is what I don't understand when I'm waiting an hour and a half. Why didn't he or his nurse or receptionist come out and apologize? I have dignity. My time is just as valuable as the doctor's time. It is not one whit less valuable, and not because I'm Dennis Prager. Anybody in the world it's as true of. Their time is just as valuable as the doctor's time. And that's what I don't understand. I understand, why don't they call you up if they know that the doctor went to the hospital for surgery? Why don't they call you and say, Mrs. Jones wants you to know the doctor will be 2 hours late today. That's dignity. It's a loss of dignity to sit there and do nothing waiting for that doctor. I totally understand that he can't control or she can't control it all. But they can't control how they treat the people who wait. There are so many forms of theft, and it all comes back to dignity. You can steal a person's good name. That's the worst. That's humiliation of a person publicly. That's smearing them. This country has so much smearing of people's names. It's just, it's almost, it's not all, it's a pandemic. Let me be personal because I know my life better than anybody else's life. So I'm a public figure, and and I get attacked and I get praised. That's the way it is. That's if you have opinions, that happens. It's fine with me. And for those who don't believe me, I always tell them, just Google Dennis Prager and a-hole. And the last one was 8,000 hits. All right? And it goes up, and it goes up from there. By the way, that I don't mind. I mind when I'm lied about. I don't mind being called names. That's part of the being public. It's when you're lied about, that's when I feel my name is stolen. I remember somebody wrote, who was very angry at me, and wrote, Prager is a phony. I personally have seen him eat pork regularly. That's right, on a big website. This was not on nothing. This was on a serious website, a Jewish website. Now, that takes my name away because I have advocated kashrut my whole life. That would be a very serious thing. Oh, I advocate kashrut and eat pork? And it was a total lie. I did have pork once when I was 19, and this guy was not with me. In fact, he wasn't born. So it was not, and I've mentioned that. I purposely left kashrut for a very short period of time, specifically so that I wouldn't do it out of habit. But beyond that, I never had pork again. That's stealing a name, making up a lie about people. Bad names, bad arguments, etc. That's a separate issue. And that's why I protected Monica Lewinsky against these jokes. Because she had an affair with the President of the United States does not mean that you humiliate her further. It's just, what right do you have to do that? You're stealing a name. Stealing a name in Judaism is as if you've killed someone, by the way. Whoever humiliates somebody in public, it's as if he has spilled his blood. That's how strong it is. Intellectual property. Again, Judaism led the way. Whoever cites a source, according to Judaism, the Talmud says, whoever cites the source of an idea, mevidu la'olam, brings redemption to the world. You want to know how to redeem the world? Don't steal an idea. You know how often I know in my own life people will write me, Dennis, I want you to know, I heard you say this, I stole your idea in a sermon I gave, a rabbi or a pastor or so what. And I want to say, if they actually talk to me, I'll say, well, it is stealing. People say stolen ideas if they even admit they're stealing and then they don't think it's wrong. Judaism, that's why if you read the Talmud, you will read, Rabbi this said in the name of Rabbi that, who said in the name of Rabbi that. 3 citations to go back to the original source. And I know in my broadcast, I'm very serious. That's why I always quote Frankel on this issue. And I don't take the credit for that line. This is all from my Jewish education. You can't steal ideas. You can borrow them, but you can't steal them. There's intellectual property. By the way, a notion that kids are totally foreign with. I've done shows, and I've had young people call in. I asked about downloading music that they didn't pay for. I'm not talking where it's legal, where it's not, where you should pay. They have no clue. What am I stealing? I'm not stealing anything, right? It's not like picking up an apple from a fruit store. No concept that music was produced by that band or whomever and belongs to that company, and therefore he has to pay or she has to pay for that. No concept of it, because we don't know about stealing what belongs to another, or what we call intellectual property.